Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall, where we throw ideas, see what sticks, and nurture those that do. I'm your host, Armando Leduc, an actor, entrepreneur, and coach, giving you insights that light up your world. We're here to explore the realms of business, marketing, and life, serving up a shot of inspiration with every episode. Ready to make ideas stick and grow them into something great? Let's dive in.
Boy. Back again with another one. Armando, what's going on?
Dude, you ready?
I've been ready.
Are you ready for this? So I'm rolling in. I want to get to it because I know people now that the podcast is a little bit different, and the strategy behind it and the intentionality is a little different. I want to make sure that I'm answering questions and I'm giving value, because at the end of this, I want you guys to get moving and taking action. That's the thing. We had the mastermind this week, and I forced everybody to take action, because I can sit and talk to you all day and you can absorb it through osmosis and feel it. And if you don't take action, that's just where it's going to stay, right? It's just going to stay in this ambiguous idea state for you. And I don't want that. I want you to experience what this is like, not only for you as a personal person and for personal development, but how this can extremely impact your business in a good way and start giving you the freedom that you want to live the life that you want, connect with the people you want to connect with, increase your thought leadership, increase the brand authority, increase your personal branding, the whole nine. That's why we're here. That's why I'm preaching podcasting as the vehicle. But I'm changing things up a little bit, because I've been sort of working on my own brand and my personal brand. And I'm thinking about this word called connection architect, right? Because when I boil it down and I'm thinking about, okay, yeah, podcasting is the vehicle and how to scale your business. And I can talk to you tactics all day. However, when I boil it down and it's like, what is the superpower here? What is it that I do that you can implement and really have a good life, not just build a business, but have a really good life? And that is connection to people. That is connection to people. If you can connect with people, right? Your staff, your family, all of your business relationships, your friends, if you understand how to connect with people and really understand the human condition, you'll start to understand how it's just a much more fulfilling life when you implement this, because you can be super intentional about how we interact and how we help each other. And Adrian over here, I try to pour into Adrian as much as I can, because I know that if I can help Adrian get what he wants, in return, I'll get what I want.
Absolutely. And can you talk a little bit about when you try to pour into somebody that's being a bonehead? Because that was my experience.
It's so funny, right? Because like this morning I had a discussion with my sales manager, Cannon, and we were talking about some of the follow-up approaches and things like that. And he didn't agree, right? And I could have said, well, you know what? I own this company, so Cannon, you better listen to me. And I said, well, hold on, Cannon, why you disagree? Tell me why you disagree. Well, this. Okay. I completely understand. Can I come in and maybe change the paradigm a little bit? Maybe change your perspective? Sure. Great. So I go in and I explain my perspective, and I kind of outline why, not just what he needs to do, but why he needs to do it, right? The psychology behind it.
Yeah.
Goes back to the connecting, right? Because had I just said, Cannon, just listen, man, I own this company. Just listen to me. Do what I say. That's it. If you do that, people are going to become super resentful very quickly. You can't treat people that way. And now you're starting to plant seeds of resentment, you're going to anger, and so when you give people an opportunity to express themselves, understand that they have a perspective. And I've talked about this too from that book, leadership and self either deception or self-sabotage. But they talk about when you're inside the box, you're treating people like they're an object. And when you're outside the box, you're treating them like they're a person with dreams, a person with goals, a person with, fears. And so immediately, as soon as you make the decision to treat them as a person, you're outside the box.
Right.
And so that's what I'm trying to preach is like, let's treat people as people, right? Understand that they may have a bad day. They may be going through something. They maybe have a good day, right? It's so nuanced, but people just, they just don't care enough to do it. And so they're missing out on huge opportunity.
And how do you keep all of that sort of, I mean, that's a lot to keep in perspective. How do you kind of, as a visionary, and you're living in that, 50,000 foot cloud looking at everything, to keep track of everybody's sort of day to day and how they're doing? How do you stay in that mode?
I make sure that I am talking to my leadership team, right? Because there's no way I can talk to everybody. And that was one of the topics that I was talking to him about today. I was like, there's no way I can talk to every single person. That's not a scalable business model, right? So the people that are in my immediate vicinity and the people that I'm talking to on a regular basis, my leadership team, right? Close family, close friends, right? Those are the people that I can really pour into, right? Because I only have so many hours in a day.
Right.
So if I am intentional and I can build leaders, right? And that's how you really scale a business. When you're, when you're 0 to about 3 million in revenue, you're focused on actually 0 to 1 million, like solopreneur type stuff.
Sure. But
if you really want to scale a company, you have to start developing leaders and you have to start pouring into leaders, and they're going to follow by example. If you're, if I'm like, hey, I need you to do this and this is what I need you to do, that's how they're going to talk to their employees. Right. But if I'm giving them an opportunity and I'm treating them like a person, then I can stay at this 50,000 foot view. Right. And you already know how I feel about the 6 types of working genius. Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you know assessment wise who you have on your team, and that's another
works for me.
I can go in this whole podcast could be strictly about the 6 types of working genius. If you haven't read it, please read it. But that, in a nutshell, it's finding the right people for the right seats and understanding what your superpower is and understanding what their superpower is, so that you can be where you need to be and not worry about having to do everything. My superpower is connection. My superpower is sales and content and doing things like this.
Yeah.
I do not have a superpower of accomplishing tasks, right? But there are people out there that love tasks and love checking off the boxes. Love it. They're up. Done this, right? I don't derive pleasure from that, Right. So if I can find the people that do, then I can find the who, not how, of growing my business so that I can live in my superpower. I'm not frustrated. They're not frustrated. And we're in an environment that works. Yeah. So that's sort of been the secret to how we're growing and how we're connecting, and everything. Here's something I want you guys to think about. Everything is a sale. Everything is a sale. Your romantic relationships, the employees you bring into your business, the business that you're trying to get from your prospects and clients, it's all a sale. I have Adrian here. It works for me. Works with me. I like to say works with me. I have to, on a weekly basis, sell you on why you should continue working here, right? In some capacity, whether it's how I reach out to you, making the phone calls going, Adrian, you're doing a great job, man. Love what you're doing here. Words of affirmation, how we're, all of that stuff will help sell you on why you should continue working here, right? So don't forget that. I think people forget that part. They forget that, people should work here because I'm giving them a paycheck. Be like, good luck with that. Good luck with that mindset. You know what I mean?
you mentioned, I'm curious, you mentioned, that you have to be very intentional with all of your actions and everything you do. And I was kind of hoping, that you could speak a little bit more about the importance of intentionality. I think that's pretty interesting.
I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I just had this conversation with Cannon right this morning.
Yeah.
And I said, look, man, when I reach out to you, Cannon, and I pour into you and I schedule time to talk about how awesome you're doing and the thing, and keep your head up, and, let's change the mindset and let's change the verbiage and all of that stuff. Understand that all of this stuff is planned out. I plan on a weekly basis to reach out to my staff and give them words of affirmation, acts of service, gift giving. Like, I am intentional about that. Does that mean that the touch point that I had with Cannon is diminished in value because I planned it a week ago? Absolutely not. Right? Like, plan it. Be intentional about it. There was I think it's Diary of a CEO, is a podcast with a guy, but he was talking about be good to your future self. And what does that mean? Like, think about what your future self is going to be experiencing and make it easy for him or her, right? If you want to go to the gym tomorrow, then have your clothes picked out, ready to go in a bag by the door. You want to eat healthy, have some meals prepped, eat, do all of the things ahead of time so that when you're ready to do it, you don't have to spend more brain energy thinking about that. That's why Mark Zuckerberg always wears a black t-shirt and jeans, because he doesn't want to spend mental energy trying to figure out what he has to wear for the day. Right. And so when you're making decisions on a daily basis, thousands of decisions, micro decisions, if you can give yourself a reprieve and you can make it easy for your future self by thinking ahead and going, oh, this is where I'm going to be tomorrow. This is where I'm going to be at this time. Then let me make sure that I set myself up for my success on the future self. And that compounds over time, right? Because now you're doing this on a daily basis. All of a sudden you're consistent with everything that you're doing. Boom. And you're making it easy for yourself. So I'm intentional about all of the relationships in my life. Right. And I want to make it a scalable business model. It's not scalable for me to reach out to 100 people, right? With heartfelt, heart-centered approaches. However, if I can get Cannon or my staff to tee up some ideas on how to reach out in a heart-centered approach, and it's in the description in my task on the day that I have to do it, it's going to be a lot easier for me to send out, oh, hey, I should create a little video for John and say, hey, man, love what you're doing, bro. Keep it up. I know entrepreneurship is hard, but you got it, man. Boom, send in the morning. Holy shit, man. Thank you for that. That's intentional.
And we're sitting here on this podcast, and it's one of those things that I'm looking at some of the numbers on Spaghetti on the Wall. We're trying to kind of develop partnerships for profit and everything, and I'm hoping that you could tell me a little bit about, like, what are some of the strategies that you developed to achieve podcast success? How did you do it?
One word: consistency. People want to get to the end result, but they don't necessarily want to put the work in. And I'm more concerned with the work than the end result. There was an amazing, 2012. I remember it because it's so vivid to me. 2012, I went to the New Orleans Museum of Art. There was an exhibit there called Lifelike. And I go in there, and the art is just everyday items, right? A bowl of red beans and rice, or one that was extremely striking was a trash bag, right? In the middle of the floor, bulky, right? Like bulging trash bag. It was made out of marble. Whoa. And like, you would look at it, like, I could get this close to it and it looked like a plastic trash bag, right? Chiseled away, all imperfect. And it's this art. It's a thought process for this art group that create like everyday objects out of things that are not what the object is, right? Like the trash bag is the marble piece.
Kind of reminds me of the Andy Warhol soup can, the Campbell's soup can.
Yeah, I mean, something like that. Like, for instance, we walked inside. This guy had recreated his home in the 1970s, right?
Whoa.
And he painstakingly went and found the wallpaper. He had to look.
Whoa.
He went to garage sales, researched it online to find that exact wallpaper, that exact refrigerator, that exact model of chairs, that exact table, that exact linoleum floor, like rebuilt. Like I walked through this living room, right? And a mini house that he recreated just for the purpose of the art. Like he wasn't getting paid. He was just consumed with the painstaking recreation of it, right? The art for the art's sake. And that like blew my mind because at the time I was just kind of running fast forward as an actor. And I was like, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be a celebrity. That's what I want, right? And when I experienced that art exhibit, it had such an impact on me because I was like, I'm totally focused on the wrong thing. I'm totally focused on the end result when I should be focused on the art.
Yeah.
Just get painstakingly studying the art of acting, studying directing, studying script writing, studying, frameworks and getting caught up in that. And because I did, at the end result was I was in 60 television and film projects from Green Lantern to Prison Break and all that. And I don't say that to toot my own horn because I hate it. You know what I mean? But because I am so now just focused on the work itself and not necessarily on the back end, I don't care about the back end anymore. I really don't. KPIs, whatever, sales, it's gonna what I know now is that the end result will take care of itself. I don't have to focus on that. If I focus on the day-to-day, if I focus on being intentional, if I focus on consistency, that wins the day every day. That wins the day every day, right? And so you're just building and building and building and building. You look up 2-3 years from now, you have, close to 300 episodes of Spaghetti on the Wall. You've been able to talk to some of the most, you've been able to rub elbows with billionaires, right? You're in the same room as these guys. You're speaking on stages, you're doing these things, and you're like, damn, had I thought about the end result and that would have been my focus, I would have missed out on the most important piece of that. And that's the work, right? Like that is the getting lost in it. Yeah.
Well, when you look back on that sort of consistent growth phase that, like you mentioned, consistency, and it was, focusing on the art and building up, were there any like key steps or moments where you thought, oh, this is a step that you can share? I know that's a bit of a loaded question. I'm sorry.
No worries. I love the question. For me, they're breakthroughs, right? Like they're breakthroughs. And I learned this. You ever watch the movie Slumdog Millionaire?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, you remember, and it's so funny.
Right?
Every time I get a question, it takes me back to a point in my life that makes me remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. Right.
Right.
So my first business was a swing Latin and ballroom studio in Augusta, Georgia. Right. I taught swing Latin and ballroom studio, and got to travel, competing, throughout the country. What I learned in teaching, right, and the method that we learned was the Fred Astaire dance syllabus. But what I learned is that as you're teaching these people how to dance, they're going to have many breakthroughs throughout the process of learning. We learn in 4 phases. We have unconscious incompetence. This is where we don't know what we don't know because we haven't learned it yet. We don't know, right? Then somebody comes in and says, hey, this is how you do it. And now you have conscious incompetence. This is where you know what you're doing wrong, right? You're being taught. You still don't know how to do it, but at least you're aware that you're doing it incorrectly. Then you have conscious competence. This is where you're doing things correctly, but you're having to think about it. It's very methodical, right? It's like when you're driving a car, I got to think about putting my seatbelt on. I got to think about rear view, all that.
Right.
Then you have unconscious incompetence. This unconscious competence, this is where you're doing things second nature and you're not having to think about it. So, and you cannot skip those steps. You have to go through those 4 steps. Some get through those steps quicker, right? Some take a little bit longer. You're gonna the conscious incompetence step is very quick, right? Because you start learning and you're like, oh shit, I don't know anything, right?
Right.
But as you hit these milestones and as you hit these breakthroughs, those are the 4 phases that you're going through, right? You're getting to the conscious incompetence, then you're getting to the conscious competence, and you're getting to the unconscious competence. And that's just how you learn something. And so if you're focused once again on the work, on the consistency of it, you're not judging yourself too harshly. You're embracing the suck at the beginning because you're going to be terrible. It doesn't matter, right? You're not going to like it. But if you can embrace the suck and push through, and this is why I believe having a mentor and having a coach there to coach you through those moments is imperative.
Right.
Because they can bring you through those moments where you're just like, I'm not going to do this.
Right.
What's the point?
And I really love that line because, embrace the suck of it all. I mean, that's really fun. Like, well, one of my favorite quotes, and it's from a very unlikely source, but one of my favorite quotes is, hey, man, sucking at something is the first step on the road to being kind of good at something. I love that. And can you talk about how sort of embracing that sort of journey and embracing and honestly adopting this podcast strategy, can you talk about the impact that has had on Leduc Entertainment and your business? I mean, that's a big question, right?
Exponential growth. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have had people in my life, mentors that guided me correctly. Right. And that's why I think it's my job now to pass on that knowledge to people like you. Right. And whoever's listening. Right. I think it's my job to pass this stuff on. The exponential growth that we've been able to experience with Leduc Entertainment as a result of creating the podcast and being consistent and building a brand and authority, and our reputation is just ironclad, and we've got over 100 5-star reviews, right? Like, this is no accident. This is all intentionality, right? Because we were focused on the work, right? And embracing the awkward phase of starting something new, right?
Yeah.
Even now, like, as we grow, new obstacles present themselves. It's just constant. It's just never going to stop. If you start a business thinking that problems are going to stop, they're not going to stop. Problems are just here to stay. But if you view problems differently, and I've said this before, if you view problems as opportunities to be better, to learn, teachable moments, then the perspective is different. Now I'm not looking at problems as problems. I'm looking at problems as opportunities to be better, to tweak, to get, to level up. Right. Because one of the things my mentor told me, and he put it in a visual form, right? He said in a 20-ounce Coca-Cola bottle, right? If I shook it up, right, and I opened the cap, what would happen? It would explode, right? Now, if I took 20 ounces of Coke, right, and I put it into a 32-ounce bottle and I shook it up, what would happen? It would be, you would still have a mess a little bit. Yeah, you would still have a little bit of a mess, but it wouldn't be as bad.
Right.
But then if I took 20 ounces of Coke and I put it in a 40-ounce bottle and I shook it up, what would happen?
Not anything. Right.
Nothing, right? And so the visual here is that you are the canister, right? Like, you are the container. And as you grow, the the problems and the things that you're viewing as like end of the world stuff, as you grow in personal development, you handle these things like they're nothing, right? Like it's not a big deal because you know that problems and obstacle exists on a regular basis, right? But your container is big enough to handle that, right? Yeah. And you continue to grow and you have the scars to prove it because you've gone through all the failure, right? And so you're in a better spot to do that stuff. So I'm always like, you just got to grow as a person. And for us, and for me specifically, when I started this podcast, Spaghetti on the Wall, 3 years ago, the growth that I've had as a result of having this podcast is something that I can't even put a price tag on. Like I can't even quantify the confidence that I have now, right? As a result of being on camera and answering questions. Like if you would have done this to me 3-4 years ago, I would not have been able to pull this information out of my head, right? I would have been like, whoa, okay, let me think about that. And you'll see, and you can go back and see a lot of these videos where I first start, where I'm just like, and I don't know what to say. Now I'm just like, whoa, how about this and this? And it's all recollection. I'm reading a lot and I'm growing. So long story short, the impact of embracing a podcast strategy, a social media strategy, getting on camera has been exponential. Right. We've been able to bring in more clients. We've been able to attract talent to work for us, right? Because they see the culture. They see me on camera. They see what I'm doing. They see that I'm consistent. So they can trust that it's going to happen. I just had a read through of my comedy show that I'm producing called Life on Bourbon yesterday. And I have all these people that have agreed to work on this project. All these people. And it was like, I had to take a second because I was like, wow, all these people trust me so much that they're showing up to rehearsals. They're showing up to get this stuff done. They believe in what I'm doing because of the consistency. If I didn't have any of that and I was like, hey, I want to do this project, do you think I would have been able to bring the people on in this manner? Probably not. Right? Because they'd be like, well, maybe he'll do it. Maybe he won't. I have no idea. What's his track record? What's his case studies like? What is he doing? Right? Yeah. Could be a crapshoot. But they know because I'm consistent that and because of the consistency, they can count on this project getting done at a high level with some amazing people, and they're along for the ride. Right. And this is, and what I'm saying is, again, like the exponential growth that you're going to experience as and you could speak on this too, right? Absolutely. You started doing this podcast how long ago? Partnership for Profit.
What, 6 months maybe?
Yeah.
Right.
What do you I'll pose the question back to you. What are you like now compared to 6 months ago when you first started?
Well, and I'll take 10 seconds here to share a quick story that it's hilarious, right? I mean, looking back, so 5 years ago, I was on a phone call with you, and on that phone call, this is when I had was pretty brand new to the company, and there was a conversation that happened, and this is what I was going to ask you again, was you called me up and said, hey, Adrian, as your mentor. And you said that to me on the phone, and my hard-headed self at the time, I look back and I'm like, God, I was a moron. But I said, hey, man, I got a mentor. I call him Dad. And there was just this dead silence on the phone of you going like, oh boy, this is going to be a tough one. Yeah. And yet here I am now in the suit coat. We are dressed pretty much the same right now, having this conversation, So, it is one of those things that it's been absolutely invaluable to me that, again, to go back to the 6 types of working genius, that worked out really well for me. I found my seat. I've found what I consider to be, you know, my superpower in this role. I have found the place that I fit and that works for me. And I am, you know, I used to get up every day and be like, oh man, all right, here we go. Let's get today started. Now I'm like, all right, what's on the docket today? What we got going on? It's completely different. It's a completely different mindset, completely different shift in thinking, you know?
Yeah.
It's been wild. And I'm curious that leads me to a question for you, because I was such a knucklehead. How do you lead somebody that doesn't necessarily want to be led? How do you, you know, you can lead the horse to water. How do you get them to drink?
I love that question. How do you lead the horse to water and make them drink? I always,
Because I'm sipping the Kool-Aid, man.
no, I hear you, man. I appreciate that. I think it's really about belief.
Mm.
We have head trash that we talk, and I spoke about this last week, right? All the head trash, yeah, that we all have, that me as a coach or me as a salesperson or me as the owner of the company have to overcome, right? I knew because of I met you, I'm not, I can't say I'm the best person at character, but I feel people, right, deeply. Like I feel when somebody has something inside that they're protecting because of just trauma and head trash and limiting belief, right?
Yeah.
So if I can be the belief for them until they get that belief, right, then I will be that for them. And a lot of times in the nature of what we do here at Leduc Entertainment, because we're putting people on tape and doing social media content and all of that, a lot of times we're playing the coach to these, you know, to these business owners who have never been on camera before, to say, hey, you don't have to believe in yourself right now. Just believe me. If you trust me, if you trust my organization, if you trust the people that work here, that will have the belief before you have the belief, you will get the belief, right? All you have to do is trust me enough to follow me, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll take you there. You know, I'll this water's sweet. You're gonna love it. Look at everybody else drinking the water. You know what I mean? Like, it's great. You know, so that's what. So the phrase, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I don't really believe that, right? I believe that you can lead a horse to water, and then you can also make him or her drink the water,
right?
Because of the belief that you instill in them before they have it for themselves.
You got to splash the water in the horse's face a couple times sometimes.
Sometimes you got to do that. And look, some people are just like, nope, not going to do it. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm not with those people. I mean, obviously, if they're saying no because they're saying no, great. If they're saying no because they have limiting belief and they're just scared, then I'm like, great. I got you. Don't even worry about it. You know, I'll be here while you trip and fall, and I'll pick you back up. You'll get back on the horse, and we'll keep riding. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I view this life for me, right? There's a book by My Story Brand Miller, Donald Miller, I believe. Anyway, he writes the book on like how to create a story brand for your business. And he always says that you are not the hero of your company, right? Like, you're not the protagonist. You are the guide in the story of your business. You are the guide. You are the Obi-Wan Kenobi for the business. That's who I am. Yeah. I'm not the protagonist. I'm just here to help guide you on this process, right? And so if I can help guide you, and if I can have the belief before you have the belief, then you'll gain it. It'll happen. It's just going to happen organically. Happens all the time.
And you know, I do have a question, because this is I mean, this has been kind of huge for me, especially in, you know, the past few months. I've been moving into a different position a little bit with the company and things like that. And you know, I've heard you say it over and over again, and I would love for you to tell us a little bit about the, you know, importance of it, and tell the, you know, the listeners a little bit about the importance of it. that shift in mindset. I'm someone that was, and I'm trying to change it now, but everything I was saying was, oh, well, if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, and you have been drilling into my head, not if, when. And can you talk a little bit about that importance, that shift in mindset?
Words are spells.
Hmm.
Words are spells. Period. Bruce Lee talked about it. How you show up inside your head, the things you say to yourself, the things you say out loud shape the world. Period. So, if you want to shape a different world for yourself, if you want to shape the view of you that you have of yourself, then you have to change the language. You have to change the language because there's spells. That's how we communicate. It's symbols, right? We've all agreed that these are AirPods, right? We've given it a name. This is the symbol for it, right? Everything has. So if we start to call this something else, then it becomes something else. Right. If we start to change the language on how we approach ourselves, saying, I can do it, right? Of course, this is not a problem. I used to work out with this dude, Seth Watson, and he would say, and when we would lift weights and it was heavy, he was like, that's paperweight. That's paperweight. And I was like, yeah, it's paperweight, right? So when you start lifting and you're lifting heavy, you're like, it's paperweight.
Right.
But that's the mindset, right? Like the verbiage shifts. And so your mindset shifts and your reality shifts. But if it just starts with language, right? Like what you tell yourself every day, what you choose to consume every day, how you choose to show up every day. Yeah. All of that matters, because if you start to change that, you'll change you, you'll change your circumstances, you'll change your environment, you'll change the people that are around you, which is why I don't watch the news. I don't care about it. And people will continue to try and tell me about what's happening in the news as if it's, oh, you got to listen to the news. I'm like, you have to listen to the news. I don't have to listen to the news. Right. I choose to not participate. Oh, we have a recession. I choose not to participate in the recession. Right? This is coming. I choose not to participate.
Yeah, right.
I choose not to participate. Right? And when you adopt this level of thinking, it makes it so much easier, right? Because you now know that you dictate your life.
Yeah.
Literally, you dictate your life on how you show up and how the verbiage that you choose to use.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is, now this might be complete nonsense, but I remember reading this somewhere that when you do a magic trick, abracadabra, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the actual translation of that? It translates from the original, whatever language it was, I don't remember.
I think it's Arabic.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you know what it translates as? It translates into, I speak into being, I speak into creation.
So I just heard that yesterday.
I
just heard that.
Really?
Yeah.
Must have been. We might have watched the same thing.
The David Nagel podcast. But yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm speaking into existence.
And can we? We were talking. Can we bring it back around to podcasts? Because I'm kind of curious. Like, can you talk a little bit about the rising influence that podcasts are having on businesses? Like, I mean, this is obviously something that businesses are starting to realize the power of and the importance of.
Every business is a production company these days, period. If you don't believe that, you will be out of business very soon. I promise you that, because every single business nowadays has to have some sort of production element to it, right? Plumbing companies, electricians, law firms, med spas, you name it. They have to have some sort of content strategy attached, video content strategy, right? Why? Because people want to consume content. People want to know who they're going to be dealing with. People want to know what the thought process are. How am I attracting people into my business? How am I attracting clients? How am I attracting, everything that we're doing now is being recorded, and it was like what websites used to be, 20 years ago, that
Right.
everybody needed a website, right?
Right.
Nowadays, everybody knows they need a production company or some sort of video element to the business. Why? Because that's what people are paying attention to. People are research obsessed. And if you're not existing on social media, if you don't have videos attached to you, you don't exist. You
Right.
don't exist.
Right,
And you're
right.
going to continue to, you'll still be in. Will you still be in business? Sure. Is it going to be scalable? Absolutely not. Because
Right.
the people that know you, great. But the people that don't know you, what are they going to do? They're going to go to where they hang out, not to where you want them to hang out. If you hang out on LinkedIn and you think that everybody that works with you is hanging out on LinkedIn, I can promise you that's not the case. Because people that want to work with you may want to be on Instagram, may want to be on TikTok, may want to be on YouTube, may want to be on Facebook, right? I don't go to LinkedIn.
Right.
I don't hang out on LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn because I know my clients and prospects hang out on LinkedIn, but I don't hang out there. You know where I hang out?
Kind of boring.
Instagram and Facebook is where I hang out
Right.
most of the time. I don't even remember the last time I went to Twitter. TikTok, maybe here and there. I'm on TikTok now. But I don't necessarily hang out on TikTok, right?
Right.
But I know that it's important to be on TikTok. So that's what so the idea is that we've got to be omnipresent, right? And how can we do that in the most effective way possible? And for me, it's a podcast strategy. Because if I can create long form videos, right? This is about to be an hour-long podcast.
Yeah.
The amount of content that I can pull from this video, I now have 30 plus pieces of content that I just created in this hour alone.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a content strategy that you can pick up very quickly and pull content from for your social media and your website, podcasting.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit? I mean, this is another thing that we've done with Leduc Entertainment, and you've spoken with me a little bit about it, but I want to learn a little bit more about it. Can you tell me a little bit about like what the importance is of niching down and finding your niche in the market? Because, or niche, or however you want to pronounce it, riches are in the niches and all that.
I'm laughing because you already know, right? Like I've preached it, and I'm preaching it now harder than I used to because I fought it for years. I fought it. And I know people are on here listening that are fighting it. They are fighting it every day. I'm not going to niche down. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm like, okay, you keep doing that. That's fine. If you want exponential growth in your business, which happened to us about 5-6 months ago when I said, hey guys, we are moving into the legal space. We are niching down to attorneys and legal vendors so that we're all speaking the same language, right? So what happened? We stopped doing restaurants. We stopped doing tour companies. We stopped doing all of that stuff. Armando now moved away as the bottleneck in the business because they no longer needed to have Armando tell them where we are with different deals because we're selling the same thing. There's a reason why Raising Cane's and Chick-fil-A make more money per store than McDonald's. Now, they don't make more money than McDonald's globally just because McDonald's has been around for a while. However, store-wide, they make more money. Why? Because they've niched down to chicken fingers and fries and coleslaw.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so they're able to grow exponentially because they've simplified the process. So when I tell you that you should niche down before you even start a podcast, is this reason. If you know where your prospects are hanging out, right? Conferences, Facebook groups, podcasts, you can find your avatar and you can find your prospects so much easier this way.
Right.
And here's the gem. Here's the secret, right? I don't need to think one-offs, right? Like I don't want to just talk to attorneys. I want to talk to the person that has all of the respect of the attorneys. I want to talk to that person. And I want to know as many of those people as possible. Why? Because they will exponentially grow my business. Because if I become a referral source for them and they become a referral source for me, now when I talk to them and through them, I'm talking to hundreds of attorneys that have already vetted me.
Right.
So as when they make a connection, you could take that to the bank. Because, hey, Paul said you need to work with so-and-so. Hey, John said you need to work with so-and-so. Now, when we get on a sales call, it's easy. But if you're not niched down, you're chasing chickens. You're maybe in the MSP space. You're in the home services space, home med spas, this. There's no focus. And because there's no focus, you're not talking to anybody. And in marketing, you have to have a target, right? Like, and you have to be known as that person in that space, right? The nuance of knowing your niche will help you sell. The reason we can sell to attorneys is because when I'm speaking to a personal injury attorney and I say, hey, during the treatment phase, there's a lull in communication with your client. Why? Because they're going to the doctor, they're building the case, but there's really nothing happening. And what happens? The client gets upset because they don't know what's happening. They're in the dark. And because they don't have a client journey mapped out and they don't have videos going out on a consistent basis in that treatment phase, they can lose clients to another attorney.
Right.
If we didn't niche down, I would not know the nuance of their problem. So much so that when I bring it up in conversation, they go, oh, he knows the problems. He knows me. I can trust that he can bring me, that he can get the results that he's promising.
Yeah.
So niche it down as quickly as possible, fast. And when you do that, you'll see exponential results.
Yeah. When it comes to business podcasting, are there any trends that you have seen kind of come and go? And what are some of the current trends in business podcasting? Right. It's one of those. I'm
gonna tell you this
question.
I'll tell you this. I don't pay attention to other people. I just don't. I don't. I'm a member of several masterminds, marketing masterminds, high level masterminds, right? And I'm learning from those people. As far as like podcast strategy and what other businesses are doing, I don't necessarily know what trends are happening. I know what's working for us and what's working for our clients, right? And so what's happening in those steps is we know that podcasting is becoming more popular. That's a fact. Right. Podcast, everybody knows that they need a podcast. So that's a good thing. Here's the mindset shift though, is that a lot of business owners are focused on the viewership and who's going to watch my podcast, and that they may only get 2 or 3 viewers, right? And then they stop. And I say, hey, nobody's going to watch your podcast at the very beginning. That's not why you're doing it. Right. You're creating your podcast so that you can talk to your referral partners and build relationships with prospects and build content so that you can cut clips from it, so that you can put it on social media, and so you can start growing your brand. And if you get viewers, that's what we call Lagniappe here in New Orleans. Lagniappe is something extra. It's bonus, right? So don't focus on that. Focus on building a brand, building relationships, and using that podcast as that vehicle. And when you do that, you will grow your business quickly. I've got another meeting that's about to start, so I've got to cut this podcast short, but I appreciate you being here and asking me questions, man.
Hey, man. Always a pleasure, dude.
Yeah, man. If you guys want to know more, hit me up. LeDuc Entertainment. I'm also on all social media platforms. So I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned because we'll have a lot more coming up, and we'll see y'all next week.
Later, buddy.
Later, man.